Reverend Joanna, could you test the mic? That left her? Yeah.
Test, test. Can you hear it okay?
I think she said they got it now.
Okay. And when Mike gets back, we'll try my lapel mic.
Okay. Okay, sound coming in loud and clear.
Should they take their masks off?
No, I mean, is that the street? Oh, yeah. If they're comfortable doing so, if they're not comfortable, that's okay.
Should they, do you want them to stand back?
Yeah, that's probably good, and distance from each other.
Yeah. Okay. Stand at the back of the rug and distance from each other, and you can take your masks off.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, thank you. And you're gonna be there too, so
Yeah. I'll just,
we'll just all spread out.
yeah. For the report.
Anyway, we do a replica of the city of Bethlehem that is.
Okay, let me turn on the,
It's all populated with Barbie-sized dolls. In fact, some of the dolls are Barbies.
Okay.
And it's like the whole story, and it's all this stuff going on, and it's the most amazing thing. No, this guy built this thing in his backyard.
It's in his backyard?
It's in his backyard, it fills his whole backyard, and it's like got waterfalls and there's koi fish ponds, and
test, test. Lapel mic, test. Lapel mic, test. Okay.
it's amazingly.
Thank you. It's about time someone.
I told him I can never, because it's open like 3 nights, and tonight's the last night. I'm telling you, because you live right near it. Because he takes by donation if you want to donate. People are like, do you take Venmo? I didn't bring any money with me because it's so cool. Mike thought I was going to drag him into this thing where somebody had made like cardboard village of Bethlehem. So this guy isn't. He's an artist like you've never. I've just never seen him like.
I want to see it.
Let me show you a couple pictures. It'll blow your mind. Oh, I can't sit on this tree, so I'll just move right here.
It should be in the office, but if you want to just grab it.
I thought you were gonna not want to be here.
Okay, so here's what you see when you walk in. That's the entrance, like the entry to it, and that's just some cool stone. This guy does the most amazing. But look at this. Look at what's inside the houses. I can give you the address, but this is one of my. This is like a little person sitting by a little fountain with feeding birds.
I want to go.
She would. Look at this. Look at this scene.
Oh wow, there's like
Oh, it's
that
this.
is what it looks like.
I took this picture because it was so cool. Isn't that? And see, pictures don't do it justice. It's just weird.
It looks like a real city.
Yeah.
And it's like, and there is a part of it, but there's all these other scenarios of things, like you can see Herod's castle and a little family fleeing to go to Egypt on their donkey with their donkey, and it's like the story. It's like I don't know. It's just the most amazing thing. Here's, and he did it with like these were in Herod's castle, I think, and they're Barbies and stuff. It's so exquisite. It's the most amazing thing.
Yeah, I know where it is.
Well, if you recommended that.
Well, look at this, this little shepherd laying on the ground with the sheep. Lake Sheep, okay, Great Valley. I can give you that address.
Can you text it to me too?
Sure. So I kind of had to drag Mike because he was like, how to do this cheese part thing.
Yeah.
And he took so many pictures and videos. He was, and I asked the guy, his name is Jorge, and he's amazing. And I was like, I can't believe you did this. I asked him.
To the church?
Yes.
Okay.
It's on if you drive straight across 620 off of, like Lake Creek, or go toward your house, you go past the street, you would turn to go to your house. It's a little ways
They
down.
are chairs apart, not that I think that it will make that much of a difference, but tomorrow.
Yeah, and he just invites people, and it's only these 3 nights. Invites people to come to the backyard. He's got a donation box if you want to make a donation, but it's just
have one this week.
Yay.
Okay, yeah, I'll give you that, I'll send you the address.
Okay. Yeah, I'm assuming you have my wife's stuff.
So this must be the guy, Jorge.
Sure.
Good morning. Our prelude this morning was Coventry Carol, arranged by Eric Baumgardner and performed by Julianne Knott. Whether you are participating online or here in person, we say, welcome home to Live Oak Universalist Unitarian Church. My name is Mark E. Anderson, and I am so glad you're here. For our guests, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to the Live Oak Weekly Newsletter. It's the go-to place to know everything that is happening here. There's a link on our homepage. Thanks to all for your continued care in following the current guidelines for in-person service so we can provide as safe an environment as possible during what remains a challenging time. Masking is mandatory inside for everyone over age 2, but with your mask on, you will be invited to once again lift up your voice in song. And now, here and at home, let us light our chalices. At winter solstice, in honor of ancient traditions that celebrate this time of longest night, we observe that the flaming chalice holds the elements of the 4 directions: earth, air, fire, water. The lamp oil for earth, the air that feeds the flame, the fire we light, and the chalice itself, the cup, the symbol of water. We light our chalice and reflect on the light we need to guide us through hard times, of our shared faith, the light of loving community, the light of love, joy, and hope. Our opening hymn is "The Holly and the Ivy." Please rise either in body or in spirit and join together in song.
Good morning. I'm Reverend Joanna. Today is a precious gift. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Whoever you are, whomever you love, and wherever you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. I want to take a moment to extend a very special welcome to everyone who's visiting us. So rather than gathering because we all have the same beliefs, we are an intentional community that is gathered around our shared promise to support each other's individual spiritual journeys. And we're also intentional about bringing all ages together. In today's world, that often doesn't happen, but we think that it's important to have an adult friend ask a child or a youth, hey, how'd you do on that science test you were worried about? Or for a 30-year-old and a 70-year-old to have the opportunity just to chat about life after the service or while they're working on a project together. Now, though we do not require everyone to share the same beliefs, you'll still find that we have many of the same values in common. We believe in science, reason, the equality of all, and the need for equity. We know that Black lives matter, we value reproductive justice, and we celebrate the LGBTQIA+ community. We work to make love the doctrine in our lives and to put it in action through service in this church and out in the world. So that's a little bit about us. We hope that after the service you can stay and chat and tell us a little bit about you. May we celebrate the promises and the possibilities of this day together. Every week when we gather, we share pieces of our lives with each other. We share our sorrows so that we may offer comfort to one another, and we share our joys so that we may celebrate together. And today, Catherine Inyart shares a sorrow. Her niece's husband, Andy, died a week ago. And Mike Schultz shares a joy that his son Jonathan received a letter yesterday canceling his $20,000 student loan debt. In this religious community, we hold with reverence the knowledge that each week a multitude of different emotions and experiences are all brought together into this space. One of us may be celebrating while one is weeping. One may be filled with determination while another is filled with despair. This mosaic of experiences is holy. It says something about who we are as a community, that we honor all of these with our witness. Our big idea today is called The Night Tree. This is by Eve Bunting, illustrated by Ted Rand. First of all, does anyone here have a tree like that they've put up for the holidays? Where is your tree? In your living, it's inside your house? Wow, mine is too. That's really kind of a bizarre thing when we think about it, right? It's a fake tree. So is mine too. Mine's too. Yeah, which maybe even, I don't know, I'm not sure which is weirder, like to bring in a real tree or to have a beautiful facsimile of a tree. That's a religious debate that I'm not getting into today. I have too many others that I will be getting into. On the night before Christmas, we always go to find our tree. We bundle up so we're warm. Nina is already wearing her boots that are too big for her. She has been wearing them all day. Dad sets our box in the back of the truck with the rest of his stuff, and the four of us squish into the front seat. We drive through the bright Christmas streets to where the dark and quiet begin. Nina is almost asleep in Mom's lap when we stop. Are we there? I ask, and Dad says yes, and rolls down the windows so we can smell the tree smell. We scramble out. There are oaks growing here, and alder and maples. The pines and the spruces and the firs are all green. This is called Luke's Forest, but Dad says it's not really a forest, just a nice forgotten place where the town ends. He goes on first on the path between the trees, carrying our box and a big red lantern. Mom and Nina go next, holding hands. I come last with a blanket. It hasn't snowed yet. It's so cold, my breath hurts. The sky is spattered with stars, and the moon, big as a basketball, slides in and out between the treetops. Dad's lantern sweeps ahead. Look, he whispers. We stop. A deer is watching us. I see the brightness of its eyes, then it turns and is gone. Here's our tree, Dad says. It's been our tree forever and ever. We walk around it, touching it. It's grown since last year, I say. Mom puts her hand on my shoulder. So have you. So have I, says Nina. Nina hates to be left out. An owl hoots deep in the darkness. There are secrets all around us. Can I put on the popcorn chain? Nina asks. She hops up and down and right out of one of her boots. Mom helps her get it back on. Nina takes one end of the chain and I take the other, and we wind it around our tree. We've brought apples and tangerines with strings on them, and we hang them from the branches. It's hard to hang string loops when you have gloves on, but it's too cold to take them off. For weeks, we've been making balls of sunflower seeds and pressed millet and honey. We hang those too. We scatter shelled nuts and breadcrumbs and pieces of apple underneath for the little creatures who can't climb very well. Our tree looks so pretty. Mom says I should spread out the blanket so we can sit and admire our tree. She's brought a thermos of hot chocolate. I take off my gloves and toast my hands around the warm cup. Dad turns off the lantern and we stay quiet, hoping that some of the little animals will come while we're here, hoping the deer will come back. But it doesn't. It's shy, Dad says. I'm shy too, Nina tells him. Before we leave, she and I get to choose a Christmas carol to sing. I choose, "O Come All Ye Faithful." Nina chooses, "Old MacDonald Had a Farm." That's not a Christmas song, silly, I tell her, but Mom says it's fine and a very nice song too. We sing fast because there are a lot of verses and it's getting colder. After the last E-I-O, we gather up our things and head for the truck. I look back once. Our tree has folded itself into the darkness, but I think I can see it still, stars caught in its branches and the moon swinging lopsided on top. Nina gets tired and Dad has to wrap her in the blanket and carry her. I carry her boots. Later, in bed, I think about our tree, and sometimes next day when the aunts and the uncles and the cousins are at our house and it's noisy and happy, I let my mind go back to Luke's forest. I think of the birds having their Christmas dinner and the squirrels and the opossums and the raccoons and the skunks. There might even be a bear, because Dad says bears don't really sleep all winter, and if one's going to wake up, I just bet it would wake up for Christmas. Maybe a fox has come, stepping high on its thin, sharp paws, and they're all there together, singing their own Christmas songs on Christmas Day around our tree.
Every week, we engage in the spiritual practice of generosity, combining our resources to support the ministries of this church. Part of our mission is to empower dreams. And this Sunday, we will be sharing the offering with our Minister's Discretionary Fund. This fund enables Reverend Joanna to respond to members of the congregation who are in need, or to help people in our community who are not members. As we pass the baskets here at Live Oak, those at home are invited to go to liveoakuu.org or click on Donate. Our offertory music today is The Boar's Head Carol, performed by our choir.
I love Christmas. This is no secret to people who know me. The reason why I love Christmas is because it's so big and messy, and it's a combination of so many different things, just like our religion of Unitarian Universalism. It's big, and it contains so many contradictions, right? It's religious and it's secular. It's sacred and it can be irreverent. And it is Christian and it's also pagan. There's so many different things that make up what we think of as Christmas. And it has always been that way. But there are voices, especially this time of year, that want to make it smaller than it is, right? Those voices that say things like, Jesus is the reason for the season. Or even well-meaning progressives that bemoan the ubiquity, the fact that Christmas is everywhere. Well, good luck trying to change that. It only grows, and for thousands of years, it only grows bigger every year. It has spread all over the globe, even in countries that are not predominantly Christian. And it goes back, frankly, farther than even its own history. Christmas, as we think of it, started long before Christmas, long before Christianity. We know much of this about the pagan beginnings of it, but you may not know some of the specifics. There's this thing where with the winter solstice, and we've talked about this at church earlier this month, the winter solstice would come and people would notice that the nights were growing longer and longer, and the days were growing shorter and shorter. Could there be a time when the days would simply disappear altogether? And so they would respond to that by creating traditions and rituals and celebrations. In ancient Greece, There's a holiday called Halloween. And it was oriented around Poseidon. For those of us who identify as women, this was our holiday. The men, for the most part, stayed outside, building bonfires, doing some athletic sort of competitions. Like, we haven't changed that much, right? The women would all gather together. Only women would gather inside, and they would feast and they would drink. And there was an aspect of sort of a fertility festival to Halloween. The women would tell racy stories. They would eat breads that were they were in the shape of reproductive body parts. And the priestesses would whisper knowledge to them. One thing you should know if you've never come to Live Oak before, one of the things that we, as well as other UU churches, are very proud of, one of our programs that we offer is called OWL, which stands for Our Whole Lives, and it's sexuality education, broken down age appropriately from little kids all the way through elders, adults. So, you know, Halloween, like we're just following an ancient tradition here, although we don't separate out the genders. So that was Halloween. Then over in Persia, modern day Iran, you had at first, but they had a holiday again oriented around the solstice. The fear was that on the longest night, that was when evil spirits could run amok. And so the way to protect yourself from that was to stay up all night long. Don't blink, don't fall asleep. And so the way to stay up, if you've ever tried to do this before, it's much easier if you do it with all your friends and family, and a lot of music and storytelling and feasting. They ate dried fruits to remind themselves of the summer and the lushness, the fertility of that. And so that was called Shab-e Shaleh. Then in the first century, you had these new Christians who moved into the area, and they were given protection from religious persecution. And so simply their new traditions were melded in, and so the word Yalda was the Syriac word for Christmas. And so even today in Iran, this is still celebrated, and both of those terms are used interchangeably, kind of like the way we both use Christmas and Yule or Yuletide. And then in the 1300s, that was the time of the Persian poet Hafiz, and his poetry became a big part of the holiday and still is today. People stay up all night long reading his poetry and doing divination with his poetry, which is called bibliomancy, right? Like when you open a book, any book, and you're like, you know, you point to something and you go, okay, this is going to give me an answer, or this is going to, you know, tell my fortune. So they do that with the poems of Hafiz. So then, over in ancient Scandinavia, this you've probably heard about, they had Yule, or Yule, as it's now called. And so a lot of the things that, you know, when we think of kind of Scandinavian Christmas, things like Yule log, like this is where it came from. Or have you ever noticed, I assume probably at IKEA, but like if you're looking at Scandinavian Christmas decorations, you'll often see a goat. Has anyone ever, right? That's called the Yule Goat, which was part of their celebration even before Christianity. Then Christianity starts moving into the area, but you know, it was not as in other parts, like in Great Britain, other areas, the pagans were still the ones that had all of the power. And so it was a more sort of organic joining together. In fact, they had a king who was Christian. He was Christian but religiously tolerant. And here's a quote from him. At that time, the time of the solstice, the time of Christmas, everyone was to have ale for the celebration with a measure of grain, or else pay fines, and had to keep the holiday while the ale lasted. So what this king actually did is he said, I don't care whether you're going to celebrate Yule or Christmas, but you got to celebrate something. And the way that they would determine if, in fact, you were doing your duty and celebrating was by how much alcohol you had consumed. And so they would actually, and I believe it was something like, because it took place over several days, which most of these did, I mean, just as Christmas does today, right? Like, you can't escape, Christmas is not just December 25th. Right now, it seems to be starting in October, but that's a sermon for another day. But so, I heard a historian talking about this aspect, and he joked that, okay, at that point, you could be pulled over by a cop for not drinking enough. Please do not follow this example. When our guests do not wish to imbibe, please honor that. Then the one that probably everyone has heard about the most, Saturnalia, and this was oriented around the god Saturn. And there are two things that were kind of the main themes of Saturnalia. One was role reversal, and the other was license. So role reversal for them was mostly oriented around the economic classes. And so this was the period of time where servants would sit down at the table, they would feast, often their masters would wait on them. And then license in terms of freedom to do, freedom for wantonness, drunkenness, gluttony, and freedom for free speech. During this time, you could say terrible things about your master, and it was tolerated because the idea was this is for a limited time, and after this holiday, we're going to get back to our normal, injustice way of living. As Christmas, as Christianity was moving into the ancient Roman Empire, these things began melding together. And these things of these, having these holidays that were either directly or tangentially connected with the solstice, it seems to be that that's just one of the most human things that we do. Because I'm just giving you a few examples. There's so many other ones. And it's not just, in the northern hemisphere, like Peru, winter solstice for them is hitting around June, but they still have winter solstice traditions. Now, the internet is very helpful in some ways, but it is also a fabulous way, as we all know, of being able to spread wrong information or information that seems like it should be true, information that has maybe a grain of truth. And the thing is, we all have different motives. And when it comes to paganism and Christmas, a lot of times there are conclusions that are, it's like there's a thick, straight line that is drawn between ancient celebrations and modern things that we do. And maybe it shouldn't be a thick, straight line so much as a, timey-wimey, squiggly dots, because a lot of these things, when you look at the actual scholars, they'll a lot of these things, like I know that there's one about how Santa Claus was originally Odin, as part of Yule. And if you talk to any actual scholars about this, they're like, no, that's like, you're really making a leap there. Even the thing about, and I know I'm attached to it too, even the thing about the Christmas tree, and we look at this and we're like, well, this is clearly a pagan symbol. Kind of, maybe. The truth is we don't really know, because Christmas trees didn't really start getting used widely until about the 1800s. And so did they do that because back pre-Christianity, pagans were also, lifting up Christmas trees? Maybe, but the truth is we don't actually know. One of the things that goes along with all of this is we often want to ascribe motives that fit our experience, right? Confirmation bias, they fit what we want to believe. And especially for those of us who have been victimized by those of the dominant religion, which in the United States is Christianity, then we absolutely, we pull from our experience. And so when others tell us things like, the Christians stole Solstice, well, based on our experience, we can say, yeah, I think that makes absolute perfect sense to me. For the most part, modern scholars will say, it was more a matter of the Christian church being pragmatic, and it was just kind of an organic fusion, blending. This is one of the things that we humans do, and sometimes it happens very naturally. Sometimes we're a little too arrogant, right? That's where we get cultural misappropriation. But it happens, and it's still happening, right? It happens all the time. Birria tacos, which came from Mexico, if you're not in on that, that has kind of swept the United States. Some people are quite obsessed with birria tacos and even follow certain taco trucks around and are known by name, but we're not going to talk about those people. But in Houston, and it may have happened in other areas, I'm only familiar with Houston because that's where I lived and have friends there, you have a large Vietnamese community. And so now in Houston, you can get birria pho, the noodle dish. And apparently it is also obsessive worthy. Like, this is just something that we do as humans. The issue is, can we do this in a responsible, non-arrogant way, right? Can we take new traditions, not claim them for our own, but treat them with the respect that they deserve, which includes educating ourselves about the background and where they came from. This is frankly what, now not the being respectful part, but being pragmatic about traditions melding together. The Christians, Christian leaders, they were pretty upfront about this. Augustine, so one of the earliest Christian theologians On Christian Doctrine said, philosophers happen to have said, if they have said anything that is true and agreeable to our faith, the Platonists above all, not only should we not be afraid of them, but we should even claim them back for our own use, what they have said. Pope Gregory I, this was at the end of the 6th century, he encouraged the missionaries to Britain to make allowances for the folk traditions, saying, there is no doubt that it is impossible to efface everything at once from their non-Christian obdurate minds, because he who endeavors to ascend to the highest place rises by degrees or steps, and not by leaps. So when you hear voices that will say things like Jesus is the reason for the season. No, Jesus is a reason for the season. Or keep the Christ in Christmas. That's the one that really makes me kind of giggle, because it's like there's this idea that there was ever this pure Christian holiday called Christmas. There never was. And in fact, you know, the ones that at least were the most honest about it were like the Puritans, who flat out forbade there to be any Christmas celebrations. Now, little detail, they would say you shouldn't celebrate Christmas because it is pagan. Don't think that they meant pagan the way you or I meant pagan. Pagan was often used to mean Catholic, because that's what they considered Catholics to be. And so it was often anti-Catholic bigotry that would lead this. And then in the United States, as Christmas developed and became more of an event, again, you would often hear people talking anti-pagan when what they really meant was anti-Catholic or anti-immigrant, right? Because immigrants were associated with being Catholic, especially Irish. So, Christmas is large, and it has all of these different aspects. And if you want to celebrate a purely secular Christmas, there is historical precedent to do that. If you want to bring in the Christian religion, it is absolutely there for the taking. If you want to get more in touch with sort of pagan roots, which right now I really encourage, there's information, again, from good scholarly sources that we can get to. Here's why I encourage that right now, the getting in touch with something that is more earth-centered. I think that right now, like we already felt like we were on shifting sand, right? And now Omicron, and what's life going to look like by the end of January? I don't know. I know that that is not good for us, living with this level of uncertainty now for this long. I think that we need to seek out ways that we can center ourselves. I think that may have been a big reason why all of those winter solstice celebrations, why they hung on, why they were so ubiquitous, is because people looked at a time of uncertainty and they needed to feel grounded. And so they connected back with the earth, with the trees, and taking walks in forest and decorating with evergreens. And that's something that we can do right now, you know. Maybe you stay up to see the sunset. If you're a morning person, perhaps you get up and watch the sun rise to remind yourself that yes, the sun rises every day, the sun rises. Take walks out in nature. We do have our Christmas trees inside our homes, real or fake, but maybe look at the trees outside of your house. You know, is there something that you want to put out there again, so that you can be reminded that you are a part of nature, not apart from it. And troll the Yuletide carol. Christmas is, much like our religion, a living tradition, and it changes through the years. There are things that we pick up along the way, other things that we discard. Christmas 20 years from now will probably be different in some ways, but whatever it is, take what you need and what means the most to you and celebrate. I invite you now to join me in a time of meditation, taking this as a quick little gift to yourself of simply being present, being right here, right now, making yourself a little bit more comfortable, closing your eyes if you're comfortable doing that. And this is Winter Solstice Meditation, written by Lynn Cox. We pause as the path of the sun reverses, seemingly holding its place for a moment of turning. Let us delve into the gifts of darkness at the winter solstice. We follow curiosity and contemplation down into the cold earth, taking a journey to the world below the surface. Here we find acorns cached by squirrels and chipmunks, perhaps to be food laid in store, or perhaps to become trees in the fullness of time. We find the burrows of hibernating animals, those who sleep and repair. Life finds rest and renewal in the darkness. May those who are weary find comfort. May those who are struggling find meaning and companionship. May those who are injured or ill find recovery. May those who hunger find abundance. Let this be a time of healing, and may the dreams of the dark lead us to share these gifts with one another. Let this be a time of resilience. May the changing seasons bring new meaning and new insights. May creativity and persistence lead us to find resources for all to share. May those who migrate find safety, and may there be good news in the wind. May transformation lead us onward. We now lift our imagination to the sky, to the returning sun and to the brilliant winter night. Shifting hours of light and darkness remind us that change is part of the rhythm of the universe, and so trouble does not last. Acknowledging the gifts of darkness, we also look forward to the growing light, a change that brings glimmers of hope. We marvel at the beauty of this time, stars unobstructed by leaves, jewels of the night shining over the land, moon and meteors inspiring us to awe and wonder. Let this be a time of celebration. What joy can be found, let us hold it close, blow on its ember, and share its spark. We do not take for granted having come this far, and we give thanks for our companions on the journey. And let's hold that for a moment in silence. Amen and blessed be. Our closing hymn today is Here We Come A-Wassailing, performed by the Live Oak Choir. Please rise, either in body or in spirit, and join with us.
Here we come a-wassailing among the leaves so green.
Here we come a-wandering so fair to be seen.
Love and joy come to you, and to you your wassail. too. And God bless you and send you a happy new year. And God send you a happy new year. We are not daily beggars that beg from door to door, but we are neighbors' children whom you have seen before. Love and joy come to you, and to you your wassail too. And God bless you and send you a happy new year. And God send you a happy new year. Good master and mistress, as you sit by the fire, pray think of us, poor children, who wander in the mire. Love and joy come to you, and to you your wassail too. And God bless you and send you a happy new year. And God send you a happy new year.
Good morning. I'm Carrie Krause, the Director of Lifespan Faith Development here at Live Oak. We are kind of on winter break right now for our faith development programming. However, this morning you'll find winter crafts in the fellowship hall that are open for anybody to have fun. There's 4 tables you can join with instructions on each one. And we will have our regular classes back in starting on January 2nd. One note is that I had sent out a message that the playground was closed. They managed to get it to the point where it is usable, but the gate now is down at the corner instead of the usual space where you would find it. Please remember that children must be supervised by their parents, not out there by themselves. Thank you.
So the squiggly line between pagan traditions and Christmas, it's squiggly and it's dotted, not entirely clear, but it is still there. And especially when we focus not on specific traditions, but more the themes, that's where we're going to see it then and now. An example being, I told you about how in Saturnalia, it had the themes of license and of role reversal. Well, by the Middle Ages, that was working along with Christians. And so you would have people who would be declared the Lord of Misrule or the Abbot of Unreason. I'd like to volunteer for that, thanks. So think as you're going through the holidays, open yourself up to these timeless themes, whether it is sacredness or irreverence. There's probably something that you can find that fits what you need. And may love and joy come to you.
Extinguish this flame, but we recommit anew to carrying into our week the flame of justice and love. May we share with others the courage and strength we find here. Performed by Rebecca Mays.